have one quick Q&A to start. I'd like to know your take on, I was thinking about codependency on relationships. And, you know, like we hear one should not be codependent on their partner and things like that. And so I want to know your perspective in regards to codependency, interdependent, and dependency in a relationship.
I've never heard anyone, I haven't heard at least commonly said that you should be codependent.
I like that. That's things that people recover from. They don't want to be.
I've heard the dependent.
Oh no, codependent is, I've heard a lot in my.
Well, if people are using codependent, I think they mean dependent. That's the issue where a lot of people are using words and they're not really understanding the word that they're using.
Okay.
Because women, it's always women.
Yeah.
Right. But codependency means that the man is dependent on you just like she's dependent on him. But the woman's not complaining about him being dependent on her. She's complaining about how she was dependent on him for whatever it was, emotionally or financially, right? Structurally. She was dependent on him. So that's really, they're talking dependency. Yeah. So it's either that they're saying it because they don't understand, or they're saying it because it sounds better, because they're not trying to be honest with themselves that no, it's really dependency you're talking about, right? But anyway, let's I could tackle both of them though. So your question about the dependency and codependency,
like, is it healthy really? Like, or
is codependency healthy?
Yeah, like, what's the healthiest dependency to be in?
Well, we can answer. See, I can give an answer, but sometimes with a question we might get a clearer understanding, because my answer might seem biased, right? So, if let's say if codependency is unhealthy, then what could be healthy? Well, dependency would still get you in the same issue. So it couldn't be dependency, right?
Interdependent?
Well, what is interdependency?
To my understanding, interdependent is depending on self, but also the other, like being grounded in self and depending on self, but also depending on the other.
Well, if you're codependent, doesn't that mean that you're dependent on each other?
Solely, you're dependent on the other person. Like, you have no sense of independence.
Maybe my understanding of codependency is off. Let's look up.
Yeah.
Let's look up what codependency. Maybe my understanding, because when I think of I think of two.
Together. Yeah.
Right. But maybe the definition of codependency is not what I think it is.
I don't think as women we mean that when we say codependency. It's like, I think it's on a one-sided thing when we speak of it.
Right. Which is, it's important to understand what are we saying? Let's see. Meaning of codependency. Okay. Codependency. Excessive emotional, psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support on account of illness or addiction. Okay, so my understanding of codependency was off. I was looking at the word itself, but actually it means this right here. Codependency, excessive emotional and psychological reliance on a partner. Typically one who requires support on account of an illness or addiction. Okay, so to answer that question, is codependency unhealthy, or is it healthy? It says here, excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, right? Typically one that requires support on account of an illness or addiction. So
Yeah.
does that sound healthy? The very first thing it says excessive. So then the answer to that question is yes. Codependency is unhealthy.
That's interesting though, how it's co, but it's not co.
Right, sometimes it works that way.
So
where
I guess interdependence would be the healthy one. I think interdependence is what we thought co was.
Right, so the interdependency would then be the healthy one. So there you go.
Not sure.
But when you asked though, is codependency unhealthy? What did you think codependency meant?
I thought codependency meant solely.
You're solely reliant on that person?
Yeah.
Okay. So then really what you're asking is being dependent.
That was about to say.
Being dependent on somebody
healthy?
Is it healthy?
Yeah, that's really what I was asking.
Yeah. Because we can all agree that codependency is unhealthy by the definition of it. Excessive emotional attachment, or if it's excessive,
right,
then we can agree. Right? 'Cause by definition, it's saying it's unhealthy. There's no way to go around it, right? But maybe the question might be, what constitutes as codependency? When does a person, can it be considered as a codependent partner? Meaning, when can their emotional attachment become excessive? If you've been married for 20 years and that person dies and you don't know what to do with your life, were you codependent? Were you excessively emotionally attached, or were you just married to that person for 20 years? Right? Yeah. Versus, if I just met you last week and now I can't live without you, well, then that's codependency, because we haven't built a connection for you to feel that way. Right? But is dependency unhealthy? Or healthy? Well, if you are independent, that means that there are levels of dependency involved. That means I have to depend on you for certain things, and you have to depend on me for certain things. So just by definition, dependency in and of itself can't be unhealthy, because in order to be interdependent, there has to be dependencies involved. Right? So then we go deeper into the question is, at what level of dependency does it become unhealthy? At what level? Well, technically, as long as the relationship doesn't end and the couple stays relatively happy, there is no unhealthy level. It's only unhealthy if the relationship ends. You can only start to think about, is it healthy or unhealthy, if the relationship turns toxic and it ends. Then you'll start to measure, well, were you too dependent or not, that type of deal. But as long as you're happy and everything, who's gonna question it? The reason why people are questioning the dependency part is because, it's women actually. Men are not having this question, right? Why are women having this question? Is because so many of them are expressing how they're picking the wrong men, or picking the wrong relationships, or getting their heart broken, or having these adverse connections. So in a And people of today have losing more and more sense of accountability. So then, they have to blame something. It's not them. It's not their fault. So then they're going to say, well, it's you shouldn't be dependent. That's the thing. Don't be dependent on nobody. Don't be dependent. Don't be dependent. Right. But then what's the point of the relationship? Because the point of the relationship is to relate. To relate. Right? Relate your feelings. Relate your goals and ambition. Relate your fears. Relate your weaknesses. Relate your strengths. Relate. Into a ship where you're together, riding together, depending on each other to drive this ship into a certain direction. So what women don't think about is that while the woman is sometimes being dependent on the man in certain ways, whichever way she chooses, the man is just as dependent on you. He's dependent on you to not break his heart, which men get their heart broken all the time. He's dependent on you to, when you get your career glow up, to not leave him, right? He's depending on you to not embarrass him. He's depending on you to not switch up on him. He's depending on you to not be to be his peace and not a burden, or not an annoyance or frustration. He's depending on you just as much as the woman is depending on the man.
Sure.
There's never been a point in history or that we can see written down where, well, maybe not completely true, but typically you don't see, in healthy societies, you don't see people complaining or talking about should we be dependent on each other or interdependent or codependent. It's you're together, you depend, and you find ways, and whatever way you depend on each other, you do that to live and work together, right? What has happened is that two things have happened. Men built too good of a world in the Western world where it's so good that now women can live on their own and feel relatively safe and can relatively take care of themselves as far as resources are concerned. Right? And then number two, the second mistake was that then the men who built the world stopped teaching the other men who came up after them how to maintain this world. But this is not the first time that this has happened. This also happened in Europe. This happened in Rome. It happened in Greece. It's happened in a lot of definitely European societies, right? That we can easily look at. So So to answer these relationship type questions, what's healthy and what's unhealthy, all we have to do is look at, well, when were societies at their strongest? And when you look at, and when were they growing at their strongest? And when you see where they were growing at their strongest, look at, okay, what kind of relationships did they have at that time? And you'll see that it is a completely interdependent relationship. And in certain ways, the women are completely dependent on the men, and in certain ways, the men are completely dependent on the women. So you know, dependency is very healthy. Dependency is very healthy. What's unhealthy is being dependent on the wrong person. That is what's unhealthy. And then even that is not the true issue. The issue is not that we are dependent purely on the wrong person, because we are all humans and we all are going to make many, many mistakes. That's part of the game. The main problem is, the number one problem in my opinion is, we have no village. Because it is the village that keeps people in line. To put so much pressure or so much responsibility on individuals to do everything correctly and everything right on their own is not realistic. And we keep seeing that it's not realistic. You need a village. I mean, you need a group of other people who you are related to or semi-related to, who is judging you, saying like, whether this is what we do, this is how we do things in our group, or this is not how we do things in our group. Without that judgment from your peers and from your village, the man is going to do some unbalanced things, and the woman's going to do some unbalanced things. So it is neither the man or the woman's fault that we're having such issues in relationships. It's merely that we just don't have a village to help us to maintain our relationships. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that must mean that the parents aren't enough, which must mean that there must be an imbalance. Also, the parents must need help in some kind of way. It takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to maintain a relationship. So that's my long answer.
Ashe, I appreciate it. Nobody had any questions?
No questions.
Just give me the cue to chain the mirror.
Right, revolution. Nobody is truly independent.
True, because we all, and even beyond relationships, we depend on the men to make sure the power is running. We depend on a lot of things.
Exactly. You know, and intelligent men understand that, right? The only independency is an independent mind. That's the only true independency, is having an independent mind, right? But you'll never physically be independent unless you go live out in the woods by yourself.
Yeah.
Which you can do that, but I don't understand why you would want to do that. Though there are some people that may want to do that, but it's very...
But even then, you still would be depending on something, like some sort of shelter, or depending on something, like, because you would still need...
Yeah, you're depending on nature.
Right.
I understand.
But it's still dependency.
But you're just not dependent on any humans, though.
Right.
You're You're not depending on any humans. You may be depending on,
like you said, plants, animals.
Right.
Right.
Right. But see, and that's what nature would teach you, though. Nature would then teach you, okay, you didn't get the lesson with people, so I'm going to teach you.
You're gonna need to depend on something.
You got to depend on this tree, this branch, these bugs, these animals, this weather,
Yeah.
this dirt, this water, this lake, this spring. You're gonna have to depend, and then you learn the art of dependency with nature. No matter where you go, you're gonna have to learn this.
The art of dependency.
Right.
That's she.
And we have people running away from people where they don't want jobs where there's people. They don't want, you know, they don't even want to have fun where there's people. Like they just want to be like, don't go on vacation where there's people. It's like they just want to be in their own world, right? Depending on the electronics, or depending on, you know, or just trying to escape, but depending on plants, some kind of psychedelic or something. You depending on something. You're depending on something, right?
So it depends on what you're depending on. I was thinking about depending is healthy, depending on what you're depending on.
And then the number one question is, when you say something's unhealthy, what do you mean by unhealthy?
It doesn't help you grow or like maintain like upkeeping or well-being. Not upkeeping, but more like well-being.
Well, growth can be perspective, right? Like, what is growth, right? Growth is perspective, right? So, upkeeping, maintaining well-being. Well, what do you mean by well-being?
I can't even say what makes you feel good because there's bad things that can make you feel good. So.
Right. See, even the term healthy and unhealthy, we as a community and society don't have a, you know, community thought on what is actually healthy. What is that? What does it even mean to be healthy? What is even, because it's usually a very vague terms that we'll use, like happiness, you know. And what's a healthy relationship? When you're happy, is it okay? How long are you supposed to be happy? Like, does that mean smiling? Does that mean like you're just content? Like, what does that mean, you know? Because you got people who say you shouldn't be content. Well, isn't that like a form of happiness?
Right.
Right. So,
did you teach us this before about healthy and unhealthy? I feel like you did. I can't remember it though. And I think you did good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad is represented by healthy and unhealthy.
Right.
Right. So then you have to answer the question. See, because all of these things are technically perspective. So there is no technically right or wrong, like what's healthy. Well, I mean, there can be, but it depends on what you're asking about. If you're talking about health itself, well, then healthy and unhealthy is very obvious. It's just about whether you're in homeostasis or not. That's just very plain. Which you could use for everything else in life too. You could say it's homeostasis. It's in homeostasis. But when people are asking, is this healthy or unhealthy? What are they asking? Are you asking, is this going to maintain homeostasis? Meaning it's going to maintain balance and longevity?
Mm. Or
are you saying, is it going to make me happy and excited and feeling alive and stimulated, right? And you know, feeling in your perspective what growth is, because there's a lot of people I come into and they feel like they're growing, and they're not growing, they're just stretching what they're doing. You're not growing, you're stretching, right? Or they leave a relationship and they feel like, well, because I outgrew that relationship. No, you just got tired of that relationship, but you never grew because you didn't learn anything. The only thing you might say, well, I'm just not going to mess with that type of person or that type. But you don't leave and say, this is what I did wrong. This is what I'm going to do better in the next relationship. I'm always a better partner in each new relationship because every time I left a relationship, I always naturally, before I even got to the spiritual world, I always thought about, well, what was I doing wrong? I know what they did wrong because I complained about it already. So I don't need to think about that part. I need to think about, okay, what did I do wrong? Or what could I have done better? Or what would I have liked? What kind of, partner did I want to be? Because I wasn't able to be that for some reason in this last relationship. And, but I also wasn't thinking about relationships like, what are you going to do for me completely? I wasn't like so hung up on that. I was thinking about what kind of partner do I want to be in the next relationship, because that's what's going to make me happy, is me being the ideal partner that I see myself as. But that just was probably just an inner wisdom that I've just always, just had. But I've always understood that the true happiness in a relationship was always going to come with me being the ideal partner that I want to be, and not necessarily them being the ideal partner that I want them to be for me.
That's right.
And I would always get upset with myself when that person's flaws threw off my partnership, my partner abilities. I always would get upset because I want to maintain this level of lovingness, this level of partnership, this level of sharingness and connection. No matter what you're doing, I want to maintain this level. And then when that person's energy or negativity or imbalance threw my balance and started influencing me to act out of a character I didn't want to act, I always got upset more with myself than I was with them. No matter how upset I may get with them, I was always twice as mad with myself, because I just did not, I wanted, because I knew my true happiness was me maintaining being the ultimate, partner that I know that I can be. Just like me playing a sport. When I played football, when somebody got into my head or the coaches got into my head, yeah, I was upset that the coaches got into my head and threw off my game, but I was more upset the fact that I was allowed them to, them to get me off my game and keep me from playing the way that I know that I can play. No matter whether they set me on the bench, no matter whether they cheated me out of playing time, no matter whether they said things behind my back, no matter what, it was like I was always twice as upset with myself that I didn't play at how I know I can play, versus whatever negativity that they would bring in my way. And I had the same mentality in relationships, and I still do. So I think that's good enough for tonight.
Yes, sir.
We'll go ahead and close it down. Hit this prayer.